Welcome to another deep dive, and this one takes us on quite a journey. We're going to be exploring the story of Imam Wesley Lebron, and specifically how he came to Islam.
Yeah.
And our main source for this is a really fascinating YouTube interview where he really opens up about his life. And it's going to get pretty wild, honestly, because we're not just talking about some kind of calm, peaceful, spiritual awakening.
Right.
This is a story that's intertwined with gangs, family drama, near-death experiences, and even hip-hop culture.
Yeah, it's incredibly fascinating story. I mean, his story really shows how, the search for meaning and belonging can lead us down some pretty unexpected paths.
I mean, right off the bat, he gives this very vivid description of his early life, joining a gang at just 13, partying, drinking, drugs, the whole nine yards.
Yeah.
And it's like, at first glance, you might think, oh, it's kind of a cliche, troubled youth story.
Hmm.
But then he starts talking about the multiple near-death experiences. He had a car crash, a fight that almost killed him.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, okay, this is real. This isn't just a story. This is someone's lived reality.
Those near-death experiences, they can be really powerful moments of reckoning. They kind of shake us to the core and make us really reconsider everything.
Absolutely.
And I think for LeBron, they were definitely catalysts in his journey to search for his purpose.
It seems that way. And then on top of that, he had a lot of issues going on with his family. He talks about being kicked out by his own father
Oh, wow.
with just $100 to his name.
Yeah, it's rough.
Talk about hitting rock bottom, you know?
I mean, that level of rejection, that abandonment, especially at such a young age, can be so traumatic.
Right.
It makes you think, I wonder if maybe it forced him to kind of confront, the emptiness in his life.
Yeah.
The lack of that stability that he was looking for.
It definitely seems like he was searching for something, some kind of anchor, some kind of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what leads him to the Zulu Nation.
Okay.
And, when you think of the Zulu Nation, most people think of hip-hop, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But his experience with them was a little more complicated.
It's interesting. It really highlights the complexity of the group because, most people see them as, having positive roots in hip-hop social activism.
Mm.
But for him, it was something else.
Yeah, it really makes you question how we categorize things. Good versus bad, positive versus negative, because life rarely fits into those neat little boxes, especially a life like LeBron's.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about context.
And it wasn't just some random choice for him to join them. It was actually through his foster brother, Edgar, who was deep into, the gang side of the Zulu Nation.
Oh, I see.
So it's family ties, loyalty, the need to belong, all these things kind of pushing him in that direction.
It just goes to show the power of those formative relationships. It can really shape our choices, whether those are good or bad choices.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon, especially in communities that are marginalized in some way,
Right.
to kind of find these overlapping worlds where it's tough to see the line between something positive and something negative.
Yeah. So basically, we've got this young man. He's struggling to find his place in the world. He's caught between this, chaotic past and this uncertain future.
Mm.
And it's around this point in his life that he starts to really question, what's it all about? What's the purpose of my life?
Right. And that questioning, that willingness to kind of challenge things, it's usually the first step towards any kind of real change. It means that you're open to something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like all those near-death experiences, that complex relationship with the Zulu Nation, all of that together, it was like this perfect storm, this wake-up call that forced him to confront the way his life was heading.
It's often in those big moments, those moments of crisis where we face death or our own beliefs are challenged, where we become really open to change. It's like the ground has to shake a little bit before new things can grow.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And for LeBron, that something new came in the form of meeting Abdulaziz.
Okay.
And Abdulaziz was a Muslim leader within the Zulu Nation.
Oh, wow. So within the group, he found someone offering a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about an unexpected twist. And they end up having this really deep conversation about Tawhid while they're driving back to the Bronx, actually. LeBron was taking Abdulaziz home.
It's amazing how these chance encounters can be so pivotal.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how powerful mentors can be.
Yeah.
Especially when you're feeling lost and you meet someone who embodies what you're looking for, can be very inspiring.
For sure. And I mean, their discussion about Tawhid wasn't just some casual conversation about religion. It was LeBron's first real introduction to this core Islamic principle,
Right.
which emphasizes the oneness of God, right?
Yes, and that really resonated with him because he was raised Christian, so this idea of Tawhid really challenged his existing beliefs about the nature of God.
Yeah, like the pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but not in the way he might have initially expected.
Exactly, and I think this is where the intellectual and the spiritual kind of come together.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how different religions approach this idea of God,
Yeah.
and those differences really shape our personal beliefs.
Absolutely. And I think what's so interesting about LeBron is he doesn't just blindly accept what he's told.
Right.
He gets a Quran and a book about Tawhid from Abdulaziz, but then he also decides to do this whole comparative study.
Oh, wow.
So he's reading the Bible cover to cover alongside the Quran.
That's a really great approach. It shows, a real desire to seek truth. He wasn't just looking for something to latch onto. He was really trying to understand the merits of both belief systems, like his own personal research project driven by a need to really understand.
He even says at one point that he was disappointed that the Jesus is God message wasn't specifically stated in the Bible. He really dug deep.
Yeah, and that's a huge realization for him, because it challenges those beliefs we often inherit from our upbringing.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront those inconsistencies between what we're taught and what we discover ourselves.
For sure. And this brings us to his aha moment. This is where everything changes.
Okay.
He's reading the Bible, and he gets to the part where Jesus is on the cross crying out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?"
Right.
And it just hits him.
Yeah.
How can Jesus be God if he's calling out to God as a separate entity?
It's a perfect example of critical thinking leading to a change in belief. He simply couldn't reconcile the idea of Jesus as God with his very human, desperate plea for help.
Right. And so he decides to go talk to a pastor about it.
Okay.
But the response he gets is basically, you just got to have faith. But, LeBron isn't satisfied with that answer.
Of course not. He wants a real explanation.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just blindly believe. He wants to understand.
Exactly. And this dissatisfaction with just dogma is something that I think we see a lot in stories of people converting to a new religion.
Definitely. It highlights the limitations of blind faith. And it kind of speaks to this broader desire we all have to make sense of things.
Yeah.
To find meaning in a way that satisfies our head and our heart.
Right. So later on, LeBron ends up going to this discussion between Christians and Muslims, and he hears the pastor basically repeating that same message, Jesus is God.
Okay.
So he approaches him again with the same question about Jesus' words on the cross.
He doesn't give up. He wants an answer.
Yeah, he's persistent. He really wants clarity. It's not about arguing. It's about understanding these fundamental questions about faith and who he is.
It's like he's trying to figure out what truly resonates with him, what really speaks to his soul.
Exactly. But once again, he doesn't get the answer that he's looking for. The pastor just says, you just have to have faith. And LeBron even pushes back a little bit. He points out that God gave him a mind, and he's not an idiot for wanting a logical explanation.
It's like he's rejecting the idea that faith and reason have to be separate. It's okay to use your intelligence to explore spiritual matters.
Yeah, and this really becomes a huge turning point for him. He starts to realize that he feels more comfortable calling upon the same God that Jesus called upon. And he starts to see Islam as a faith that worships the Creator, while other religions seem to focus on things that have been created.
That's a profound shift in how he understands God. It's moving away from this human-like image to something much bigger, more transcendent.
Exactly. And so he makes a decision to become a Muslim. He goes back to Abdulaziz, who realizes LeBron is now ready to take the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. And even LeBron's friends who have been on this journey with him, they're all excited, they're celebrating.
Wow, what a moment.
But here's the thing. LeBron, he tells Abdulaziz, I'll be Muslim on one condition. Don't tell me what to do or how to do it. Because he wasn't quite ready to give up all of his old habits and lifestyle choices right away.
That's really insightful. It shows a lot of self-awareness. He knows that a change this big, it takes time.
Right.
You can't just flip a switch and become a completely different person overnight.
Right.
Trying to force that can really backfire.
And the amazing thing is, Abdulaziz agrees.
That's great. It shows wisdom and compassion on Abdulaziz's part.
Yeah.
He knew that pushing too hard could actually push LeBron away.
Exactly. So LeBron takes the Shahada, accepting Islam, but still kind of holding on to some aspects of his old life.
It's a much more human approach to conversion. It recognizes that faith is a journey, not a destination. you know? It's about slowly integrating those beliefs into your life in a way that feels authentic to you.
For sure. And it's this gradual approach that I think really allows him to fully embrace his new faith. He describes this moment where he's sitting alone, reflecting on the story of Abraham and the concept of worshiping the creator, not the created. And it's like a light bulb goes off.
That's a turning point, right?
Yeah.
He's starting to connect his intellectual understanding with his actions, aligning his inner world with his new beliefs.
Totally. He comes to this huge realization that, God has given him chance after chance.
Right.
The near-death experiences, avoiding jail time, having children.
Mm.
But he was still engaging in these self-destructive behaviors.
Yeah.
And it's like he finally asks himself, when is it going to stop?
It shows his commitment to his faith, right?
Right.
It's not just about saying the words. It's about really grappling with what those beliefs mean in his everyday life, where the rubber meets the road, as they say.
And that's when he makes this really big decision. He kicks his friends out. They don't think he's serious at first.
Oh, wow.
But he's totally serious.
Yeah.
He realizes that keeping those negative influences in his life is just going to prevent him from really changing.
It takes incredible strength to do something like that. He knew that to break those old habits, he had to create a new environment for himself.
Right. And he doesn't stop there. He also starts distancing himself from family members
Wow.
who he feels might tempt him back into his old ways.
That shows real dedication, but it also shows the sacrifices that sometimes come with growing spiritually. He had to put his faith first, even if it meant making hard choices that strained those relationships.
So where does he find comfort and support during this time of huge transformation?
It sounds like he needed it.
The mosque.
Oh, okay.
He says he would spend every single day there.
Wow.
From the moment he finished work until they closed the doors at night, it became his safe space, his sanctuary.
That's powerful. It really highlights the importance of community, Having that supportive environment where you can connect with others who share your beliefs, it can be crucial, especially during those tough times. It's like finding a spiritual home.
His wife even talks about this later on. She says something like, "Now I know why I used to be so lonely. You were always at the masjid."
Oh.
It's kind of funny, but it's also really sweet,
It is. It speaks volumes about how understanding she is. She knew he needed that space to connect with his faith, even if it meant shifting their relationship dynamics a bit. It's a real testament to their love and patience.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing how something as simple as just being present in a positive environment can have such a huge impact on someone's life.
It is. It's a good reminder that we're all shaped by our surroundings and the people we spend time with. So, surrounding yourself with things that nurture your values can be a powerful way to change for the better.
Okay, so we've covered a lot so far, from gangs to near-death experiences to that chance encounter with Abdulaziz, his decision to convert to Islam, the struggles of breaking old habits, and finding refuge in the mosque.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
What's so interesting about this story is how it shows the complexity of being human, how our past shapes who we are, how these seemingly random events can become turning points in our lives.
For sure. And how our desire to find meaning can take us to places we never expected.
Absolutely. But the story doesn't end there. Up next, we're going to explore how LeBron's conversion impacted his family. And trust me, it's pretty powerful stuff.
I'm ready.
So we left off with LeBron finding this sense of community and support within the Muslim community.
Right.
But his conversion, it wasn't just about him,
Yeah.
It really had this ripple effect on the people closest to him, especially his family.
Families are so interesting because they're like these little, I guess, microcosms of how beliefs and values are passed down.
Yeah.
How they're challenged and sometimes completely overturned.
Right. And in LeBron's case, his conversion, it brought up some really different reactions from his parents. Like his dad, for example, he was actually relieved when LeBron became Muslim.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. He said he could finally sleep at night knowing his son wasn't out there running wild and getting into trouble.
It's kind of heartwarming in a way,
It is.
It shows that a parent's love and that worry, but it also shows just how much power faith can have, how it can bring peace, not just to the person who converts, but to the people around them.
Yeah. It highlights how, personal growth can create these positive changes within a family. And of course, it's not always easy, but
No.
sometimes the people closest to us, they have the hardest time accepting our choices, especially when those choices challenge their own beliefs.
Yeah, definitely.
And that brings us to his mom, because their relationship was already pretty strained.
Okay.
And then his conversion just kind of added fuel to the fire. He talks about these constant arguments, being kicked out at one point. It was a really difficult time for them.
It makes sense, though, right? Like, change can be really hard to deal with,
Yeah.
especially within families. We have these long-held beliefs, these traditions that we're really attached to. And when someone we love chooses a different path, it can be hard to accept.
But here's the incredible part.
Yeah.
20 years later, after seeing how positive Islam has been in LeBron's life, his dedication to helping others, his humanitarian work, all of that, his mother decides to convert as well.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's amazing, right?
It really shows how influential one person's transformation can be. It's like that idea of action speaking louder than words. Sometimes it just takes time for people to understand.
Yeah, it's this beautiful story of reconciliation,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding. LeBron was so emotional, he couldn't even give his own mother the Shahada himself. He was just so overwhelmed.
It must have been such an intense moment for him. After all those years of conflict and tension,
Yeah.
to then share that moment of faith together, really incredible.
And it speaks to those deep bonds that families have, that potential for healing,
Mm.
even after so much conflict. It's this beautiful reminder that change, it's always possible. Sometimes all it takes is time and that willingness to really see each other,
Yeah. With open hearts.
Exactly. And LeBron's story, I think, it offers this really important lesson about conversion in general, because he's very adamant that you can't expect someone to change everything about their life overnight.
Right.
He even shares this story about a disagreement he had at a mosque,
Mm-hmm.
where some people were telling this new convert that she had to divorce her husband because he wasn't Muslim.
Oh, wow. That's pretty extreme.
Yeah, and it raises this really important question about, where's the line between sticking to religious principles and understanding people's individual circumstances?
Yeah, it's a good reminder that compassion and understanding are so important when we interact with new converts. Let them integrate their faith at their own pace. Change happens in stages.
Right. And LeBron makes this interesting point. He says, God revealed the Quran over 23 years,
Mm-hmm.
suggesting that even God, understands that change takes time. It's not about being perfect instantly. It's about growing gradually.
That's such a great insight. It challenges this idea that, as soon as you convert, you flip a switch and everything's different.
Yeah.
It's a journey. There are ups and downs, doubts, uncertainties. It's okay.
Yeah.
The important thing is to keep moving forward. Try to live your life according to what you believe.
And he also talks about Aisha, the Prophet Muhammad's wife.
Okay.
And she said that if the stricter rules of Islam had all been revealed at once in the beginning, people would have been completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, probably.
And they would resist it. So it's like you can give someone all the information, but if they're not ready for it, it's not going to stick.
Yeah, you got to create that space for people to explore, Let them figure things out at their own pace. It's about gently unfolding, letting go of old patterns, and embracing something new.
LeBron is really honest about his own struggles, too.
Mm-hmm.
He admits that it took him months to change some habits
Yeah.
and years to change others.
It's a good reminder that this journey looks different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
There's no right way to approach faith or spiritual growth. It's
Yeah.
personal.
Absolutely. And LeBron, he shares this really powerful story from his first trip overseas, where he visited the Prophet Muhammad's mosque in Medina.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about hearing the adhan there for the first time and just feeling the weight of all that history, the revelation. And then he visited the Kaaba, and he describes it as seeing like a mirage. He was so overwhelmed he couldn't stop crying.
Those moments of deep connection can be so powerful. It's like you're experiencing your faith in such a real, tangible way. It reminds you that there's something bigger out there.
It really reminds you that faith isn't just something in your head,
Right.
It's a lived experience that can touch you so deeply, and it can inspire you to live a more meaningful life.
It's about connecting your heart and mind, allowing yourself to be moved by something that aligns with your values.
And LeBron, he has some advice for anyone who's curious about Islam, especially for people from Latino backgrounds like him.
I'd love to hear it.
He says, read the Quran in a language that you understand, but do it with an open mind and an open heart. And he believes if you do that, you won't be able to put it down.
That's a great suggestion. It's about really engaging with the text.
Yeah.
Not just relying on what other people tell you. Form your own opinions. It's an invitation to go on a journey of discovery.
Exactly. And he even guarantees that reading the Quran like that, it'll make you want to keep coming back to it.
Right.
And he says it'll impact you in ways you can't even imagine.
It's powerful, right? These sacred texts, they can really challenge us and inspire us.
Yeah. He even says, perhaps we'll see you praying next to us one day. But it's not about forcing anyone to convert. It's about inviting them to explore, to step outside of their comfort zone and see the world differently.
That's a great attitude. It's about respecting individual choices
Yeah.
and creating that space where people can ask questions without feeling judged. We all have different paths to truth, and sometimes those paths, they cross in amazing ways.
LeBron's story is just so inspiring. He went from this troubled youth to this respected religious leader. He shows us that change is possible for anyone. We're never too far gone. If we're willing to embrace it, change is always possible.
It's true. We
Yeah.
all have that power to evolve, to challenge our beliefs, to create a life that we're proud of. LeBron's story reminds us that we're capable of growth and resilience. And that search for meaning, it's a journey worth taking, no matter how hard things get.
It's really amazing how one person's story can be so impactful. It makes you think about your own life. And those times when you're searching for something, those questions that kind of shape who you become.
I think what's so interesting about these conversion stories, especially LeBron's, is that they highlight this universal need to find meaning.
Yeah.
And we may not all find it in religion, but I think most people can relate to wanting to connect with something bigger than themselves,
Yeah.
to have a purpose.
For sure. And it kind of leads us to a final thought for you, our listener. If you were to explore a new belief system, or even just a different way of looking at the world, how would you go about it? Would you just jump right in, like LeBron did, questioning everything, comparing different ideas? Or would you be a little more cautious, maybe take it slow, slowly integrate new concepts into what you already believe?
There isn't a right or wrong way to do it, It's a very personal journey.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to think about how you approach learning and understanding in general. What are you curious about? What makes you question things? What helps you make sense of the world?
So we started with LeBron's really tough early life, went through this incredible transformation, and then saw the impact it had on his family and his community.
It's a pretty powerful story.
It really is. It's a reminder that change is always possible, no matter how impossible it might seem.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this whole deep dive. LeBron's journey shows us that we all have the ability to grow, to change our minds about things, to build a life that reflects who we really are.
Absolutely. It's about realizing that we have the power to choose a different path, to seek understanding, and just to embrace the journey wherever it takes us. So as you go about your day, think about those beliefs that you hold dear, those things you've always assumed to be true. Could you be more open-minded,
Yeah.
more curious, more willing to see things from a different angle?
Remember, this journey of learning and understanding, it never really ends. It's not about reaching some finish line. It's about the process of growing and expanding your horizons.
And you never know, that journey might just lead you to some pretty amazing places.
It could change everything.
It really could. So keep searching, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
Until next time.
Until next time.